Okay, on part 26, we left off where they were writing the warrantless affidavit. I have also uploaded the first court appearance, and it seems like many people, for whatever reasons, haven't actually got to see that court appearance from what I've noticed in the comments. It was maybe kind of overlooked because it was August the 16th and so shortly after his arrest, but the judge does give him all the stipulations and he agrees to them, even the ones that says he is not coerced. So yeah, I mean, I just uploaded that. If you're one of the ones that haven't had the opportunity to actually see that August the 16th court appearance and everything that the judge actually made him aware of and he agreed to, you may want to actually watch that one. It's pretty interesting. I think it's about 15-20 minutes long. Maybe it's not a very long court appearance, but it's very important considering what the judge did tell him the stipulations of everything was. So yeah. Okay, in part 25, we also left off to where Officer Egan believed that Chris was actually headed to Nicole's house before he done a U-turn and went back to the Frederick Police Department on August the 14th. And I find that very interesting because why would Officer Egan believe that he was headed to 12255 Claude Court in North Glen, which we all know, or most of us know, that is where Nicole Kessinger lives. That's where her apartment was located. But my question is, why would Officer Egan believe that's where he would be going on the 14th when supposedly they were not even aware of Nicole Kessinger until the 15th, the evening of the 15th, when she is the one that called them. So see, that's kind of that's a big deal there to me. You know, as it should be to most people, right? But anyway, let's move on into part 27. And just fair warning, my two cats, my two female Karens, are aggravated with each other tonight again for whatever reasons. Maybe they won't get too out of hand, but I'm not going to promise anything. Okay, this is a report from the Longmont Police Department, and the report is dated on the 30th of August, and it states that it started on the 14th of August, and they are another agency assisting, and the approval date was September the 2nd. And it reads, on August the 14th, 2018, at approximately 15:09 hours, and that would be 3:09 p.m., I, Officer Onby, a member of the Longmont Police Department Gang and Crime Suppression Unit, I was wearing plain clothes and driving a surveillance platform. I was contacted by Sergeant Pitts with the GCSU, who informed me that I needed to head to the area of 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado, to assist in physical surveillance of suspect Christopher Watts. I was provided a Colorado driver's license photo of Watts as well as a vehicle description. Investigation. Prior to responding to the Frederick address, I was informed that Watts' wife and two daughters had been reported missing by a friend. I responded to the area to assist. When I arrived in the area, I contacted Sergeant Harper with the Longmont Police Department Special Enforcement Unit and advised him of my arrival. Sergeant Harper requested I park my vehicle on Staple Rock Drive so that I could see the front of Watts' residence, 2825 Saratoga Trail. I parked my vehicle in the 6300 block of Staple Rock Drive along the west curb line and facing south. The south end of Staple Rock Drive ends at Saratoga Trail. I stayed at that location and watched the residence. After a heavy rainfall and wind, several garbage cans had blown and washed to the south curb line of Saratoga Trail, in front of Watts's residence. A short time later, I observed a male, matching the description of Watts, wearing a light-colored shirt, take one of the garbage cans and walk it to a residence on the east side of Steeple Rock Drive, just north of his residence. After returning the garbage can, Watts returned to his residence and walked out of my view. A few moments later, I observed a white Lexus SUV backing down the driveway of Watts's residence. The Lexus SUV backed onto Saratoga Trail and then pulled forward and drove east out of my sight. Saratoga Trail to the east of Steeple Rock Place turns north and back west and ends at Steeple Rock Place. As I was waiting for the white Lexus SUV to come back into my sight, I was informed by Sergeant Harper that the white Lexus SUV had stopped at Watts's work pickup truck. After approximately a few minutes at the work pickup truck, the white Lexus SUV drove east on Saratoga Trail and followed Saratoga Trail until it reached Steeple Rock Drive. When the white Lexus SUV reached Steeple Rock Drive, it turned north onto Steeple Rock Drive. When it reached Wyndham Hill Parkway, the white Lexus did a U-turn and headed south on Steeple Rock, then west on Saratoga Trail, the same way he drove when he left the residence. After approximately a few minutes later, the white Lexus again drove east on Saratoga Trail and followed Saratoga Trail until it reached Steeple Rock Drive. When the white Lexus SUV reached Steeple Rock Drive, it turned north onto Steeple Rock Drive and then east onto Wyndham Hill Parkway. The white Lexus SUV went out of my sight. I stayed in my position in case the white Lexus turned around to come back to the residence. After a few minutes, I left my position and attempted to catch up with the other surveillance units who were following the white Lexus, and due to heavy traffic, I was unable to catch up to the white Lexus and the other surveillance units. As I was attempting to catch up to the other surveillance units, I was informed Watts had agreed to come to the Frederick Police Department for an interview. I responded back towards the Frederick Police Department. As I arrived in the area, I observed the white Lexus parked in front of the Frederick Police Department. A few moments later, I saw Watts exit out of the driver's door and walk into the police department. When the interview was completed, I saw Watts exit the police department and walk to a blue vehicle that was parked behind the white Lexus SUV. A few moments later, Watts walked back to his vehicle and drove away from the Frederick Police Department, headed west on 5th Street. Watts appeared to be following the blue vehicle that was parked behind his at the Frederick Police Department. Once Watts was out of my sight, he was immediately located by other surveillance units. Commander Egan with the Frederick Police Department advised the surveillance units that Watts was likely headed to 12255 Claude Court in North Glen, Colorado. The surveillance units followed 12615 Jersey Circle West. When it appeared that Watts was staying there, the surveillance units pulled out of the area and concluded surveillance. There is no further information at this time. So we all know that Chris, or most of us know, that Chris, after he went and spoke with the detectives on August the 14th at the Frederick Police Department, he did go and spend the night with Nick and Amanda Thayer. We're aware of that. However, what gets me is Egan was pretty confident that he was headed to Nicole's house on the 14th. Do you see what I'm saying there? Why would he be so confident in his thoughts on the 14th when supposedly Nicole was not even known about until she called them herself the evening of the 15th? I mean, that's a really good question, right? It's right here in the discovery or they said on the 14th, they assumed that's where Chris was headed. So why would they assume that if they didn't know anything about her at this point? Good question. Going on down. This is going to be another report from the Longmont Police Department. And this is going to be Sergeant Harper's report. On August the 14th, 2018, at approximately 1500 hours, and that is 3 p.m., I, Detective Sergeant Harper, currently assigned to the Longmont Police Department Special Enforcement Unit, SEU, received a call from Commander Egan with the Frederick Police Department to assist with a missing person and possible homicide investigation. Commander Egan advised a female subject and her 2 children were reported missing from 2825 Saratoga Trail. He further advised that the circumstances of the incident were suspicious. Commander Egan requested the assistance of LPD SEU for surveillance operations of the male subject identified as the female's husband. SEU was advised that the male subject was last observed at the residence loading items into a white Lexus SUV. Members of SEU and the LPD Gang and Crime Suppression Unit responded to the area and observed a white Lexus parked in front of the residence while 2 subjects, a male and female, were observed sitting on the steps of the front porch. It was later determined that these were associates of the male suspect. At approximately 1830 hours, and that would be 6:30 p.m., Officer Ownby observed the male suspect, who had been identified as Christopher Lee Watts, exit the garage of the residence in the white Lexus. He exited the driveway eastbound out of sight for a few moments. Surveillance units then observed him stop at a brown Ford pickup that appeared to be a fleet truck from an oil company and a Darko. This vehicle was identified as Watts' work truck bearing Colorado license plate. Commander Egan informed Watts had been observed loading items into this vehicle early in the morning on the day of the disappearance, which was described by the neighbors as being unusual behavior. He was at this vehicle for several minutes with the rear hatch of the Lexus open and the doors of the truck also open. It appeared as though he was moving back and forth between both vehicles. He then departed, but immediately returned to the truck for a few more minutes. He left traveling directly to I-25 southbound. Surveillance units followed him in as he continued south on 136th Avenue, where he turned eastbound. Watts then went north on Washington Street and he traveled to Highway 7 and turned east. As we followed him, Commander Egan informed me he was going to ask Watts to return to the police department for a follow-up interview. It was approximately at this time Detective Steele arrived to assist with surveillance. Watts made a U-turn and traveled west back to I-25 northbound. He exited onto Highway 52 eastbound and ultimately stopped at the Frederick Police Department. Soon after, Detective Schultz arrived to assist with surveillance. SEU and GCSU remained on surveillance until it was completed. Commander Egan advised that he believed Watts would travel to 12255 Claude Court in North Glen. That is Nicole Kessinger's apartment. We followed as Watts left the police department along with a blue sedan which was also in the parking lot of the Frederick Police Department. Both vehicles drove directly to Jersey Circle West in Colorado. Watts was observed entering the garage at this location. The blue sedan parked in the garage next to the white Lexus, which had been previously observed in front of Watts' residence at the beginning of surveillance operations. Surveillance units were released at this time. No further actions to report by any surveillance. Okay, and this is another one from the Longmont Police Department, and this is going to be Sergeant Harper's report, August the 14th. On August the 14th, 2018, at approximately 100 hours, which is 3 p.m., Detective Sergeant Harper, currently assigned to the Longmont Police Department Special Enforcement Unit, received a call from Commander Egan of the Frederick Police Department to assist with a missing person and possible homicide investigation. I, Detective Stephen Schultz, this is Stephen Schultz's report, not Sergeant Harper, was on another assignment at the time of this call. I spoke with Sergeant Harper, who asked for my assistance with surveillance once I had completed the other matter I was on. So at approximately 1930 hours, and that would be 7:30 p.m., Sergeant Harper advised he was located in the area of I-25 and Highway 52, and he requested I respond to this location. I met with Sergeant Harper and Detective McManus and was advised the suspect was at the Frederick Police Department being interviewed, and once he left, we were going to follow him to any location that he went. It was believed he was going to travel to Thornton, Colorado, based on Commander Egan. Watts was observed leaving the police department following a blue sedan. Watts was in a white Lexus, and we were able to see the vehicle pass out location and set up on the overpass for southbound I-25. We followed the vehicles along with other surveillance units south on I-25. Both vehicles drove directly to Jersey Circle in West Thornton, Colorado. Watts was observed entering the garage at this location. I was advised via radio, as I had not followed the vehicles into the neighborhood, that the blue sedan was parked in the garage next to the white Lexus. Surveillance remained on scene for a short while and then was terminated. Okay, and this, again, is another report. So there was much surveillance around him and surrounding him. It's like they had assistance from Longmont, Frederick, I think a couple of different departments were actually involved in this surveillance and watching him that closely. And it doesn't state they were watching anyone else. They were just watching his every move, which is good. At the same time, I personally feel like, since they were so adamant that he could be heading to Nicole's apartment, I feel like some of them should have been stationed to kind of watch her apartment as well and watch what she was doing, because obviously they were very adamant on the 14th that that's where he would go. So personally, I feel like that, instead of having all these different departments and every one of these people all watching him at the same time, maybe some of them should have spread out a little and watched, obviously, others that even they assumed at this point he was associating with. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way I feel. On Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, at approximately 15:09 hours, and that would be 3:09 p.m., I, Officer Townsend, a member of the Longmont Police Department Gang and Crime Suppression Unit, was contacted by GCSU Sergeant Pitts, who informed me that I needed to head to the area of 2825 Saratoga Trail in the town of Frederick, County of Weld, and the state of Colorado to assist in physical surveillance of suspect Christopher White. I was provided a Colorado license number and a photo of Watts, as well as a vehicle description of a white Lexus. I was wearing plain clothes and driving a surveillance platform. I learned that Watts' wife and 2 children had been reported missing by a friend the day prior. While I was driving to the location, Sergeant Harper and the Longmont Police Department Special Enforcement Unit requested that I park my vehicle to the east of the roundabout so that I could follow Watts' vehicle to south if it were to live and take that route. I parked on Spring Gulch Street near Windham Hill Parkway. I repositioned several times to the north and south of Windham Hill Parkway. I remained in this position for several hours until MPO Omni advised a male who he believed to be Watts had entered the white Lexus and left the residence. The vehicle drove to a truck nearby, which was Watts' work truck. After several minutes, the Lexus drove to the north and then turned around and headed back towards the truck. The vehicle was then seen headed back to the north, where it turned east onto Windham Hill Parkway and turned east onto Highway 52 and then turned south on I-25. The surveillance units maintained a visual of the vehicle as it continued south on I-25 and then exited to 136th Avenue and drove east. The vehicle drove north on Washington Street to Highway 7, where it turned east. The vehicle then flipped a U-turn and headed back to the west. The vehicle got back onto I-25 and headed northbound. We then received information that Watts may be headed to the Frederick Police Department, where he did agree to conduct an interview. The vehicle exited on Highway 52 and drove east to Colorado Boulevard and turned north. The vehicle then turned east onto 5th Street and parked in front of the Frederick Police Department. I continued east past the vehicle and was not able to see inside the vehicle. We were then notified that Watts was inside and they were beginning the interview. After the interview was conducted, we were told that he may be headed to 12255 Claude Court in North Glen. The surveillance units then followed Watts back to I-25, where he got on the highway and was headed south. Okay, I want to say this real quick because I know some people may be thinking this, and before you even say that Anadarko had already let them know about Nicole, no. Anadarko, and if you've read with me the prior parts of the discovery, Anadarko actually emailed them their emails between each other at 8 a.m. on August the 15th. So, however they knew about Nicole at this point, on the 14th, that's for you and I and whoever else to decide and have their own theory on, but that is not when Anadarko let them know about her. Anadarko, definitely it was 8 a.m. on August the 15th when they informed the police department of the emails between Chris and Nicole. So they were very adamant that that's where he would be going that evening of the 14th. Sergeant Harper requested that I drive ahead to the address in North Glen and wait for his arrival. As the units continued to follow, it was determined that he was not coming to 1225. That's some typo because here's the actual address, 12255. So this is a typo, 12255 Claude Court. They followed him to Jersey Circle in Thornton, Colorado, and he was seen entering the residence. A short time later, it was decided that Watts was likely at that address for the remainder of the night, so all surveillance units were released. So, what do you think? Why do you think they were so adamant he would be going to Nicole's the night of the 14th? If, contrary to popular belief, they didn't even know about her until Anadarko told them about her and him 8 o'clock a.m. on the 15th. And supposedly, Nicole didn't call them until the 15th. That's what she said. That's what they said. So, what gives? What gives? They knew about her on the 14th. Did you know they knew about her on the 14th? Or is this the first you've heard of that? There it is. Okay, going on down. And this is going to be another report from the Longmont Police Department. And this is a person's summary. On August 17, 2018, at approximately 21:07 hours, Longmont police officers assisted an outside agency. The case is closed. And that would be 9:07 p.m. on August the 17th. And it says on August 17, 2018, at approximately 21:07 hours, 9:07 p.m., Officer P, was dispatched to the Longmont Police Department to assist the Frederick police officers, Ivan Perez, in booking some items into property and evidence. I contacted Officer Perez in the lobby of the police department, and he was holding a cardboard box with several paper bags inside. He advised me he needed to use our drying closet for several items, and I escorted Officer Perez to the property and evidence room. I assisted Officer Perez in logging each item. He did not give details of the case, only stating it was for the recent missing person case, which is Frederick case number, and it gives the case number. The first item he took out was a white sheet, which had a substantial amount of dirt on it. Officer Perez placed the dirty in a separate bag, and we draped the sheet in the drying closet. Also in the drying closet was the dirt and a separate paper bag for the sheet. In the second drying closet, Officer Perez placed a black bra, purple and white shirt, and blue pair of underwear. Each item had an individual paper bag, and I recorded each item on a property and evidence sheet. The drying closet was locked and turned on. Officer Perez advised the person to contact about the items were Detective Baumhover with the Frederick Police Department. No further action taken by this officer at this time. Property and evidence, yes. Case status, closed. And this is going to be the property and evidence report, the drying locker evidence, and it just states it has white blanket with dirt and red substance they assume is blood, dirt from the blanket, black bra, purple and white shirt, and blue underwear. Items are labeled per Frederick's case. Contact Detective Baumhover. And of course it's signed off Officer Coonrod. Okay, and then we're going into the toxicology reports. And this one is going to be on Shanann. And it says the positive findings was ethanol 128 is, of course, a BAC of 0.128. And they got it from the spleen blood, which I always found strange. I'm not sure why they didn't get it from the eye fluid, but they did take it from the spleen blood. And as many of you know, this whole blood alcohol finding has been a big question in many people's minds. And it is true, decomposition does cause that to be higher in toxicology reports. However, it is also a fact that only like 14 or 15% of the people, it does raise, you know, the BAC levels, but the decomposition does. Now, that said, I want to also make sure and say this. Do I think Shanann was drinking? No, I do not. I absolutely do not. And I know that a lot of people do, you know, and a lot of people even say, well, it's not a big deal. I mean, you know, if she had a couple of glasses of wine on the plane or whatever, and I'm not even going to say it's a big deal. You know, I'm just not. I'm not even going there. But I do not think she was drinking. I just do not. And many people, then you have the people that's like, oh yeah, she was just drunk. Oh, I completely don't agree with that at all. Totally do not. They were even asking in several of the interviews that they did, and they would spring that question on the people that knew her. Well, was she drinking, or did you know of her to drink? So I believe this kind of caught them off guard just a bit as well. Even though they explained it away in the press release after the sentencing that it was due to her decomposition, or, you know, the coroner even said that or whatever. But many people just kind of couldn't go with that, right? We have many people with many different theories, and I've always said, you know, I appreciate everyone's thoughts and opinions, and as long as you're not victim bashing, and as long as you're just giving your honest opinion based on the fact, you know, then I'm open to hear it. Well, here's the thing, and I've never said this before. I have a theory on this blood alcohol 128 as well. I'm not going to say it here in this discovery, because in order for me to actually tell you my theory, and it is just a theory, obviously, I would like to also be able to explain it and show you why I have my theory. And it's a theory that I've never actually heard anyone else say. That's why I've never even spoke of it. And as most of you know, you don't really hear me talking a whole lot about what you hear everyone else talking about. Like, one good one is the ponytail and walking out of the garage and the shadows and all of that, because I just don't know, you know. I just don't even really comment on them too much because I just don't know. I don't feel comfortable enough throwing any kind of theory or coulda, shoulda, woulda possibility out there until I feel confident and comfortable with the theory that I am presenting to anyone. So after this discovery, since we are in the toxicology report now, in the discovery, after this readout, I will make a video all to itself and try to show and explain my theory, or possibility maybe, that's maybe a better word, I don't know, of why this blood alcohol level is where it's at on her, even though it was explained away in the girls' toxicology reports, as you are about to see, as a part of decomposition. It is not explained that way in Shanann's, only the girls. Hers is not even, it's not even mentioned why her ethanol levels in BAC was so high. It's just not. Now, they did say it in the press release verbally, but it is not on the toxicology reports. It is for the girls, not for Shanann. So I do hope you look for the next video, that, because I'm not really one to throw my own theories out there and what I think in special videos, but this one I do want to do this. And since we're at this part of the discovery, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's probably something none of you have ever heard before, because I've never heard it mentioned before. It's just always been something that's been in the back of my mind. And I'm going to just come out and tell you what's in the back of my mind about this part of this toxicology report in the next video. Okay, moving on down. It goes on to give the analysis code, and it's in a gray top tube. That is the milliliters, and it was done on 8/17/2018 at 11:30 a.m. All sample volumes and weights are approximations. Specimens received on 8/21/2018. And it goes on again to say the ethanol is 128, blood alcohol concentration 128, ethanol was confirmed. It was all taken from the spleen blood. Other than the above finding, examination of the specimens submitted did not reveal any positive findings of significance by procedures outlined in the accompanying analysis. Ethanol, spleen blood. Ethyl alcohol, ethanol drinking alcohol, is a central nervous system depressant that can cause effects such as impaired judgment, reduced alertness, and impaired muscular coordination. Ethanol can also be a product of decomposition of biological samples. The blood alcohol concentrations can be expressed as a whole number by the units of milligrams, or as decimal numbers with units of G of 100 milliliters, which is equivalent to percent in WV. For example, a BAC of 85 milligrams equals 0.085 grams or 100 milliliters, or 0.085% of ethanol. Physician and pathologist's name, Burson, County Weld. Unless alternate arrangements are made by you, the remainder of the submitted specimens will be discarded 1 year from the date of this report, and generated data will be discarded 5 years from the date of the analysis were performed. Analysis summary and reporting limits. All of the following tests are performed for this case. For each test, the compounds listed were included in the scope. The reporting limit listed for each compound represents the lowest concentration of the compound that will be reported as being positive. If the compound is listed as non-detected, it is not present above the reporting limit. Please refer to the positive findings section of the report for those compounds that were identified as being present. Amphetamines confirmed in the blood, spleen blood. And I'm not going to try to read those, but you're more than welcome to look at them because I will get tongue-tied. Alcohols and acetone confirmation, blood, spleen, and spleen blood. Page 3 of 3. Analysis by headspate, gas 4, acetone 5.0, ethanol 10 milligram, and then they have the milligrams for amphetamines, barbiturates, all this other stuff. You're more than welcome to look at this. Bodygram, the autopsy bodygram. Here doesn't look like any of this is actually filled out or circled. Nothing's circled, so okay, here is the actual autopsy report for Shanann Watts. Date and time of death, August the 16th, 2018 at 5 a.m. And that is when she was pronounced. So that would be when they found her. Date and time of autopsy, August the 17th at 10:30 a.m. 34 years old, female. Diagnosis: history of being reported missing and subsequently being found unresponsive in an obvious state of death in a shallow grave. Asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. Bruising of the anterior strap muscles of the neck. Mild to moderate decomposition consisting of generalized discoloration, bloating, and skin slippage. So she was mild to moderate decomposition. History of intrauterine pregnancy, second trimester. A largely decomposed fetus and placental unit found expelled from the gravid uterus. Toxicology. Postmortem basic spleen blood. Ethanol 128 mg. Blood alcohol concentration 0.128. Opinion. Based on the history provided and the autopsy findings, the cause of death is asphyxiation due to manual strangulation by another individual. The manner of death is homicide. So as you see, that is all. I mean, that is it. He does not explain whatsoever in the actual report why his findings of the ethanol levels were so high. Now, he did explain it away verbally, or it was explained verbally in the press release following the sentencing. However, it's not explained on the report, not hers. History. The descendant is a 34-year-old Caucasian female who has a largely unknown medical history at the time of this autopsy. Reportedly, the descendant returned home from a business trip on the early morning hours of August the 13th, 2018. This was the last time she was seen alive. The descendant is subsequently reported missing on the afternoon of August the 13th, 2018. Following an extensive search and investigation by law enforcement, the descendant was found unresponsive in an obvious state of death in a shallow grave in rural Colorado. The descendant was pronounced dead at the gravesite at 5 a.m. on August the 16th, 2018. Witnesses. Personnel present for the postpartum examination include Michael Burson, MD, PhD, pathologist, and Joy Weiner, autopsy assistant. For a complete list of individuals present at the autopsy, please see the investigative report file held at the Weld County Coroner's Office. District Attorney disclaimer. At 10:10 a.m. on August the 17th, 2018, the representative from the District Attorney's Office read a portion of an email which he received from the Public Defender's Office. In this email, the Public Defender has requested that we swab the necks of the children for residual trace DNA. According to him and his expert DNA witness, They anticipate trace DNA being preserved on the neck structures of the children despite being confined in a container of oil, water, and associated sludge matter over the course of several days. Identification by the Weld County Coroner, State of Colorado. Clothing. The descendant is received in a sealed body bag and clad in the following clothing items: a purple t-shirt, a pair of blue underwear, a black bra, a white metal piercing in the left nostril, paper bags around each hand. Identifying marks and scars, none visualized. Well, I'm not understanding none visualized because she did. I mean, she had the scar on her neck, that she had just had the surgery from just a year prior. Intervention consists of the following: none. So, I don't know. External evidence of injury: possible patterned abrasions of the neck and left aspect of the face, see below. Internal evidence injury: a 1 centimeter area of probable bruising on the anterior neck tissue, bruising of the superior aspect of the right sterno, and I cannot say these, muscle. I'm not even going to try. Bruising of the soft tissue of the surface of the right thyroid cartilage, bruising of the soft tissue associated with the right horn of the thyroid bone, which is intact. General external examination. The autopsy is commenced at 10:30 hours on August 17, 2018, on the body of Shanann Watts at the McKee Medical Center in Loveland, Colorado. This autopsy is performed at the request of the Weld County Coroner in the state of Colorado. The body is that of a well-developed, well-nourished, although decomposing, Caucasian female whose appearance is generally consistent with the reported age of 34 years old. The body measured approximately 67 inches long and weighs 144 pounds. The body exhibits mild to moderate decomposition consisting of generalized discoloration, bloating, and skin slippage. At the time of the autopsy, rigor mortis is released in the major muscle groups. Livor mortis is not readily apparent due to post-mortem artifact. Okay, let's show you what livor mortis is. Okay, livor mortis is it refers to the bluish purple discoloration under the skin of the lower body parts due to the gravitation of blood after death. They're pale marks on a dead person's skin that are caused by dermal pressure. Livor mortis typically begins around 30 minutes to 4 hours after death and is most pronounced approximately 12 hours after death. So, just to let you know exactly what the livor mortis actually is and what it means. That may be handy for you to know during these autopsy readings. There is, however, an area of blanching on the right aspect of the abdomen, extending along the groin to the right thigh. This is likely consistent with an area of pressure based on the body positioning at the time of discovery. Head hair is brown, normally distributed, although sloughing from the scalp, and measures approximately 30 centimeters long over the crown. The eyes are moderately opacified post-mortem artifact. The irides appear brown. The pupils are equal at 0.4 centimeters. The sclerae are dull, although white. And see, in one of Chris's confessions, I think to Cadle, it said her eyes filled with blood. No, it did not. It does say that they were white. There is no discernible scleral or conjunctival petechia. I think is how you say that. And there's no blood in the eye. The nose is midline, although dried. It does not grate upon palpation. oral cavity. The oral cavity contains natural dentition in good repair. There is no discernible, I can't say these words, I'm sorry. So you may want to look at this part. The lips exhibit mild drying artifact. The neck structures are midline and without tuberant and tense. There is no detectable fluid wave. Genitalia. The external genitalia are largely normal adult female. However, the internal genitalia are protruding through the vaginal vault. This likely represents prolapse of the uterus due to pregnancy and postmortem artifact. Adjacent to the probable uterus is a largely degraded portion of tissue which is unfortunately covered in sandy debris from the gravesite. Upon further examination of this tissue, it is revealed to be a largely decomposed fetus. Gender and age cannot be determined. However, it has the following measurements: crown and rump length of approximately 10.5 centimeters and a foot length of approximately 0.7 to 0.8 centimeters. There is an approximate 17 centimeter umbilical cord extending to a disrupted placental disc. The membranes are ruptured and covered with sandy debris. I find it, why couldn't they, I'm not going to say why couldn't they, but they said they cannot determine the gender, whether it was a male or female. However, she had a sonogram that said that it was a boy, but the autopsy of the fetus, or of her with the fetus, they couldn't tell if it was male or female. Portions of the placenta, umbilical cord, and membranes will be retained, and the fetus will be transferred to the jurisdiction of CBI for subsequent genetic analysis. And that was, it was going to get the, they were getting the DNA to determine that it was Chris's baby. Upper extremities. The upper extremities are well developed and symmetrical with all digits present. The fingernails are long and in good repair, although markedly dirty with sand and debris from the gravesite. The fingernails are pulled and retained as evidenced by law enforcement. Lower extremities. The lower extremities are well developed and symmetrical with all digits present. The toenails are short and in good repair, with the exception of abundant sandy debris from the gravesite. Back and sacrum. The back and sacrum are unremarkable. The body is opened with a routine incision. The fat measures 2 centimeters in thickness at the level of the umbilicus. There are no abnormal fluid accumulations or adhesions in any of the body cavities. The internal organs, however, do exhibit marked discoloration and vacuolization due to postmortem artifact. The internal organs are also markedly dry. Cardiovascular system. The heart weighs 210 grams. The epicardial surface is unremarkable. The coronary ostia are patent. The coronary arteries follow a right dominant distribution. Sectioning reveals no significant narrowing by the atherosclerosis. There is no acute thrombosis. The encardial surface and papillary muscles are unremarkable. The myocardium is red-brown, firm, and without fibrosis. The valve leaflets are thin and pliant. The aorta has a normal smooth yellow intimal surface. There is minimal streaking noticed. The major branches, including the celiac, superior and inferior mesenteric and renal arteries, are widely patent. The inferior vena cava is unremarkable. Okay, here's the thing, y'all. These words, I just ain't kicking it. I know I'm pronouncing them wrong, I'm definitely not a doctor. And yeah, so I'm going to read. I need you to come and look at this with me if you want, if you're not already looking at it, because I'm going to read the ones I can say, and the ones I can't, I'm going to skip right over, okay? All right. Respiratory system. The right and left lungs weighs 280 and 320 grams, respectively, and show normal septation. The lung is pale, tan brown, and markedly. There are no masses or gross areas of consolidation. The trachea and mainstream bronchi are unremarkable. There are no foreign bodies or masses. The pulmonary arteries are free of thromboly. The spleen is soft and weighs 120 grams. The capsule is intact, smooth, and glistening. There are no scars or cysts present. Liver. The liver weighs 900 grams. The capsule is intact. No masses are detected. Gallbladder. A thin-walled gallbladder contains one well-formed gallstone. So she did have a pretty big gallstone, and that could be the cause of some of the pains she was having, maybe in her stomach, the nausea, the throwing up. Yes, gallstones will make you throw up. My sister-in-law actually had to have gallbladder surgery, and she had gotten to where she was just throwing up and throwing up. Almost, if she moved the wrong way, she would just throw up and get so sick as a dog. She actually did go, and she was pregnant too with my nephew when she even had to have the surgery, and she was pregnant as well. And it was miserable for her. She could just move the wrong way, and she would just start throwing up. And she was having extreme heartburn and just all kinds of stuff. And yeah, she actually did go to the emergency room one night. She thought she had eaten at Captain D's actually, and she thought she had gotten food poisoning. And that's how she even found out that she had this gallstone. Was because she got that sick. She thought she had food poison. And that is a true story. And she's probably listening to this right now. And she definitely knows what I'm talking about. I remember we was really worried about her. Okay, the esophagus. The esophagus has a uniform diameter and intact. The stomach is empty, is smooth, glistening, and arranged in normal rugal folds. There is no gastric or duodenal ulcers. Small and large intestines. The small and large intestines have a uniform dimension and appear unremarkable. The vermiform appendix is not visualized. Pancreas. The pancreas is tan and orange with lobular architecture. There is no evidence of hemorrhaging. Adrenal glands. The adrenal glands have a golden cortex and gray-brown medulla. Kidneys. The right and left kidneys weigh 120 and 100 grams, respectively. The capsules strip with ease. The external cortical surface is red and purple and smooth. The corticals are well delineated from the medullary pyramids. The urinary bladder is empty. The surface is tan pink, moist, and smooth. Female internal genitalia. The fallopian tubes and ovaries are unremarkable. The uterus, 480 grams, measuring 19 by 4 by 2 centimeters, is prolapsed through the vaginal vault. The uterus is open to reveal a predominantly empty space with membrane fragments remaining. There is also a red-brown fluid and discoloration of the endometrial lining. Neck. Traumatic injury has been previously described. The anterior musculature is smooth and dull. The hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage are intact. There are no masses or aspirated material. The thyroid gland has symmetrical lobes and appears unremarkable. The spine has normal configuration. There is faintly visible hardware involving the anterior aspect of the cervical spine at the level of C6. There is no soft tissue hemorrhage or other abnormalities associated with this prior surgical site. Reflection of the scalp reveals areas of congestion and discoloration which are likely associated with post-mortem artifact. There is no evidence of discrete hemorrhage, contusions, or lacerations. Reflection of the skull reveals no evidence of epidural or subdural hemorrhage. There is no subarachnoid hemorrhage. The brain is markedly soft and discolored, postmortem artifact, and weighs 1080 grams. The cranial nerves are symmetrically intact. Serial coronal sections such through the brain reveal no areas of hemorrhage, contusion, or mass lesion within the cortex. White matter, brainstem, or cerebellia. White matter, brainstem. The cervical spinal column has normal mobility. Specimens retained at the time of the autopsy include blood obtained from the spleen. Representative sections of major organs are also retained. Toxicology. Blood obtained from the spleen is submitted to NMS labs for analysis. Evidence. The fetus is transferred to the CBI for genetic analysis if warranted in the future. Swabs. The palmar surfaces of the hands, anterior and lateral neck surface and face. X-rays, AP and lateral views of the head and neck, bilateral fingernail clippings, acid blood spot card, a DNA. History. Sections of heart, lung, liver, kidney, brain, right muscle, soft tissue from the surface of the right thyroid cartilage, and right lobe of the thyroid are submitted. Okay, and this is going to be the toxicology report for Bella, and I'm just going to read the basics and what it actually says, her finding, and what the coroner ruled the death as. I'm not going to try to read all those big words again because OMG, OMG. But I will go over them slowly in case you want to look at it as well. But this is Bella's toxicology report, and it says what was present in her system, and they got her source from the chest cavity blood. And I see this VIT REOUS fluid. That is the one I was talking about. That is the best place to do the whole ethanol thing, because gases cause fermentation, in the blood, and that will cause the ethanol level to rise. Well, bacteria is found, of course, in the stomach and the gut, and that's just the body. However, bacteria cannot get into that fluid in the eye, so that's generally the best place to look for that. So I'm not sure why they didn't take didn't take it from Shanann right there, but they didn't. They took it from the spleen. But in Bella, they took it from the chest, the eye fluid, and then the liver tissue as well. Now, as you will see in Bella, her ethanol level was 13, milligrams, and hers came from the chest cavity blood. Other than the above findings, examination of the specimens submitted did not reveal any positive findings of toxicology significance by procedures outlined in the accompanying analysis summary. And this is referencing what was found in her body. And this one's the metabolism of ethyl alcohol. Flushing, headache, shortness of breath, and then there's the ethanol. And the reason I'm pointing these out is, as I say in the next video, when I try to explain my theory of these things. And you can agree to disagree. That is absolutely fine, because like I say, I've never talked about them, outside of just my husband and my family and such as that. But everybody's got a theory, and so I guess it's about time I kind of threw mine out there. And if you want to look at this, come to the computer. I'm not going to try to read all this again. It is basically, there's another with the ethyl. Unless alternate arrangements are made by you, the remainder of the submitted Specimens will be discarded 1 year from the date of this report, and generated data will be discarded 5 years from the date of the analysis were performed. And that was signed on September the 12th, 2018. And this just goes on to say the exact same thing Shanann's did, except hers was taken from the chest cavity blood. And it goes on to mention each thing they were checking for. Ethanol is 10 on this one. And again, this one's not, nothing's circled or anything's done on it. It says Bella Watts, date and time of death, date and time of death, August the 16th, 2018 at 1750 hours, 4 years old. Date and time of autopsy, August the 17th, 2018 at 1330 hours. History of being reported missing and subsequently located in an obvious state of death within the oil tank battery. Asphyxiation due to smothering. Blunt force trauma to the frenulum and the mouth of the lip, the upper lip and side. Postmortem artifact. Decomposition. Oil, water, and sludge debris in the stomach. Hydrocarbon exposure. Toxicology. Postmortem basic. Liver tissue non-detected. Hydrocarbon and oxygenated volatiles. Panel chest cavity blood. And these were the things present in her system. The ethanol was 13. Opinion. Based on the history provided in the autopsy findings, the cause of death is asphyxiation due to smothering. The toxicology results likely represent decomposition and an artifact of being submerged in an oil tank for several days. The manner of death is homicide. The descendant is a 4-year-old Caucasian female who has an unknown medical history at the time of this autopsy. Reportedly, the descendant was reported missing with her sibling and mother on the afternoon of August the 13th, 2018. Unfortunately, the descendant was subsequently located in an obvious state of death within an oil tank battery container on rural property. The descendant was pronounced dead at the scene at 1750 hours on August the 16th, 2018. Witnesses. Personnel present for the postmortem examination include Michael Burson, MD, PhD, pathologist Joy Weiner, autopsy assistant. For a complete list of individuals present at the autopsy, please see the investigative report file held at the Weld County Coroner's Office. District Attorney disclaimer. At 10:10 hours on August the 17th, 2018, the representative from the District Attorney's Office read a portion of an email which he received from the Public Defender's Office. In this email, the Public Defender has requested that we swap the necks of the children for residual trace DNA. According to him and his expert DNA witness, they anticipate trace DNA being preserved on the neck structures of the children despite being confined in a container of oil, water, and associated sludge matter over the course of 4 days. Identification by the Weld County Coroner in the state of Colorado. Clothing. The descendant is received in an unsealed body bag wrapped in a bed sheet from retrieval process and clad in the following clothing items: an oil-soaked pink pajama-type top with images of hearts and butterflies, a pair of oil-soaked underwear. Identifying marks and scars, none are visual. Evidence of medical and surgical intervention, none. Okay, a 13 by 3 centimeter area of vertical scratches on the left buttocks and at least 1.5 centimeter laceration on the frenulum. Superficial, probable bite wounds of the surface of the tongue. A 9 by up to 4 centimeter yellow tan possible abrasion on the left torso. A 3 by 1.5 centimeter faint yellow tan discoloration on the superior aspect of the left shoulder. Internal evidence of injury, none. The autopsy is commenced at 13:30 hours August the 17th, 2018 on the body of Bella Watts at the McKee Medical Center in Loveland, Colorado. This autopsy is performed at the request of the Weld County Coroner, State of Colorado. The body is that of a well-developed, well-nourished Caucasian female whose appearance is generally consistent with the reported age of 4 years old. The body measures approximately 41 inches long and weighs 38 pounds. At the time of the autopsy, rigor mortis is released in the major muscle groups and the muscles of the mastication. Livor mortis is not readily apparent due to postmortem artifact decomposition. There is postmortem artifact consisting of bloating, marbling of the abdominal surfaces, and areas of skin slippage. Unfortunately, the body was found in an oil tanker containing oil and fluid. This resulted in abundant skin slippage upon washing. Head hair is blonde and blondish brown, normally distributed, and measures up to 15 centimeters long over the crown. The eyes are moderately opacified, postmortem artifact. The irises appear brown and the pupils are equal at 0.3 centimeters. The sclerae are dull. However, there is no discernible sclera or conjunctival petechiae. The nose is midline and does not grate upon palpation. Oral cavity. The oral cavity contains natural dentation in good repair. The frenulum is markedly disrupted, and there are pink and purple bruises on the buccal present. There are also teeth impressions and superficial bite marks on the surface of the tongue. The neck structure are midline without. The breast and nipples are normal female. The abdomen is mildly protuberant and slightly tense. It's a postmortem artifact. The external genitalia are normal female. The upper extremities are well developed and symmetrical with all digits present. The fingernails are short, dirty, and in fair repair without evidence of tearing. The fingernails are clipped and retained as evidence. Lower extremities. The lower extremities are well developed and symmetrical with all digits present. The toenails are short, dirty, and in fair repair. Back and sacrum. The back and sacrum are unremarkable. The body is open with the routine T incision. The fat measures 1.2 centimeters in thickness at the level of the umbilicus. There are no abnormal fluid accumulations or adhesions in any of the body cavities. The heart weighs 80 grams. The epicardial surface is unremarkable. The coronary ostia are patient. The coronary arteries follow a right dominant distribution. Sectioning reveals no significant narrowing. And I'm just going to let you look through this, because I'm not going to try to read all this because everything is good. It's just telling the weights and that everything looks good. And if you want to pause it and read it for yourself, that's fine. Now this one is a bit different. This says the stomach contains approximately 75 milliliters of green and black fluid, which is suggestive of oil and particulate matter from the oil tank which she was in. So say she did have that in her stomach. The specimens they retained at the time of the autopsy includes vitreous fluids and blood collected from the peripheral veins, heart, and lungs. Pooled blood, as described above, and liver are submitted to NMS labs for analysis. Sections of the heart, lung, liver, kidney, and brain are submitted for histology. Evidence: swabs of face prior to washing, swabs of anterior neck prior to washing, swabs of face after washing, swabs of anterior neck after washing, swabs of bilateral hands, palm or surface, oral swabs, vaginal swabs, bilateral fingernail clippings, and the DNA card. Full body x-rays are taken and submitted to the Weld County Coroner's Office. Sections of the heart are without, and this is sections they take, they are without any abnormalities. And then on to Celeste. On Celeste, it does say ethanol C comment. And they got hers from the liver tissue. And again, ethanol, C comment. The concentration of ethanol increased from 99 mg to 174 mg over the course of multiple analyses. The nature of the specimen and or container type may not contain preservative, may explain the variable quantitative results. And I'll go through this slowly so you can read it and see where they did get the specimen from for each thing. On the ethanol on hers, they got it from the liver tissue. And then this one, of course, goes on to say it will be destroyed after 1 year discarded. And this is what they were testing for to see if it was in the system. And this to the side is the amount they found. Name of descendant, Celeste Watts. Date and time of death, August 16, 1540 hours, 3 years old. Date and time of autopsy, August the 17th, 1730 hours. History of being reported missing and subsequently located in an obvious state of death within an oil tank battery. Asphyxiation due to smothering. Mild post-mortem artifact. Toxicology. Post-mortem basic spleen blood none detected. Here it says the ethanol, number 2, 31 mg. Propanol present. Ethanol, C comment. The concentration of the ethanol increased from 99 mg to 174 mg over the course of the multiple analysis. The nature of the specimen and or the container type, which may not contain preservative, may explain the variable quantitative results. May explain. Opinion. Based on the history provided and the autopsy finding, the likely cause of death is asphyxiation due to smothering. The toxicology reports likely represent decomposition and an artifact of being submerged in an oil tank for several days. The manner of death is homicide. But see, it says based on the history provided and the autopsy finding, the likely cause of death is asphyxiation due to smothering. That is what they assume, and it is homicide. The descendant is 3-year-old Caucasian female who has a medical history significant for peanut allergy. Not peanut, it's tree nut, but it does say in the toxicology report, autopsy report, that it's peanut allergies. Reportedly, the descendant was reported missing along with her sister and mother on the afternoon of August the 13th, 2018. She was unfortunately subsequently found unresponsive in an obvious state of death contained within an oil tank battery on rural property. The descendant was pronounced dead at the oil field at 1540 hours on August the 16th, 2018. Personnel present for the postmortem examination include Michael Burson, MD, PhD, pathologist, and Joy Weiner, autopsy assistant. For a complete list of individuals present at the autopsy, please see the investigative report file held at the Weld County Coroner's Office. Identification by the Weld County Coroner in the state of Colorado. The descendant is received in an unsealed body bag and clad in the following clothing items. The clothing is all covered in oil and debris. A pink and black t-shirt, a diaper, a pair of underwear. Identifying marks and scars, none. Evidence of medical and surgical intervention, none. No significant trauma is noted, and none. The autopsy is commenced at 1730 hours on August the 17th, 2018 on the body of Celeste Watts at McKee Medical Center in Loveland, Colorado. This autopsy is performed at the request of the Weld County Coroner and the state of Colorado. The body is that of a well-developed, well-nourished Caucasian female whose appearance is generally consistent with the reported age of 3 years old. The body measures approximately 37.5 inches long and weighs 37 pounds. At the time of the autopsy, rigor mortis is released in the major muscle groups and the muscles of mastication. Livor mortis is not readily apparent due to the postmortem artifact. The body exhibits mild postmortem artifact consisting of generalized bloating, areas of marbling, skin discoloration, and skin slippage. During the washing procedure, the majority of the skin is sloughed from the surface. Head hair is red-brown, normally distributed, and measures up to 15 centimeters long over the crown. The irises appear brown and the pupils are equal. The sclerae is dull and there is no discernible sclerae or conjunctival bleeding. The nose is midline and does not grade upon palpation. The oral cavity contains natural dentation in good repair. The neck structures are midline and without injury. The breast and nipples are normal female. The abdomen is mildly protuberant and tense. That is a post-mortem artifact. There is no detectable fluid wave. The palmar surfaces of the hands were previously sloughed off during the body recovery process and are packed separately. Her skin absolutely degloved, and they actually had to put it separately from her. The palmar surfaces of the hands and digits and the accompanying fingernails are retained and transferred to the jurisdiction of the CBI. The lower extremities are well developed and symmetrical with all digits. Okay, when it comes down to the neck, it does not say anything about no sort of injuries or anything to the effect. Nothing like that. Okay, going on down, this is a supplement report, no property. It says on September the 4th, 2018, Evidence Supervisor Purcell transferred evidentiary items from the Frederick Police Department to the CBI laboratory for lab testing. I transferred custody of these items from myself to Patricia Lopez of the CBI lab. Together we verified all items submitted, checking both the item number description and printed evidence label against the evidence submission form for accuracy. The cover letter requested testing, the evidence submission form listing all items for testing, and the evidence submission receipt have been added to the case file. Nothing further, Purcell. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and when we come back, we will be going into Detective Dave Baumover. And until next time, you guys have a great day, night, evening, wherever you may be. This is Unjustified.